All right, so today we're working on section 2.1.2, which is titled Flowcharts for Congruence. And we're going to answer the question, how can I organize my thinking? All right, so one way to organize your congruence is to use this method we call flowcharts. How many of you have seen a flowchart before? Just one? Okay, you should have seen them last year in your IM1 class. Question number 12 says, examine the two triangles at right. Are they congruent? If so, which triangle congruence theorem ensures these triangles are congruent? Okay, so there was one number underneath that hole punch, and it's a 4.5. So if you need to write it off to the side like I did, go ahead and write it off to the side. It matches up with the 4.5 on the triangle on the left. So I took my two highlighters and I highlighted both of the 4.5s pink. Okay. Then I found a 7.5 and a 7.5, so I highlighted them both yellow. Then I found a 6 and a 6, so I highlighted them both blue. Okay? All three of those are sides. So we have three sides on the triangle on the left, congruent to the three sides of the triangle on the right. And so we say, yes, that they are congruent by side, side, side congruence. Okay? Any questions on problem number 12 there? Okay, because now they're going to ask us to make a flow chart that goes with that congruence. Okay? So for each of the sides, we're going to name the side. So we started with the blues. So on the triangle on the left, the blue side was AB. And the triangle on the right, the blue side, was FD. So we say AB is congruent to FD. Then I did the pinks. So on the triangle on the left, that side was BC. And the triangle on the right, that side was DE. Then I didn't have a yellow, so I used orange. So the yellow sides were CA and EF. All of that information was given to us. Okay? All of the measurements were given on the triangles, and you have to be given some information. So we just say that they were given. We have three sides. So we say that the two triangles, triangle ABC and triangle FDE, are congruent by side, side, side congruence. Okay? So this is called a flow chart, and that helps us to organize our congruence statements. Okay? Any questions on the flow chart? All right, so for question 13, it says, make a flow chart showing that the triangles below are congruent. Okay, so when we're done going over the rest of the questions, you're going to break up into groups of 4, and you're going to use highlighters if you've got them, mark the things that are congruent, see if you can make the two triangles congruent. There is a hint, and you might want to write this down. The hint is, are there vertical angles? All right? We'll come back to that in a minute after we do the questions on the next page. Okay, so flip over to page 5. Go all the way up to the top. And we're going to look at question 14. Question 14 says, suppose you are working on a problem involving the two triangles UVW and triangle XYZ. And you know that triangle UVW is congruent to triangle XYZ. What can you conclude about the sides of the angles of triangle UVW and triangle XYZ? Write down every congruence statement involving sides or angles. So underline the word sides, underline the words angles. So we're going to do both. Sides, angles. Okay, so the first column on the left, in blue, I did the sides. And the way to match them up is to make sure that you follow the order. The order definitely matters. Write down, order matters. Okay? So if I pick this statement right here, well, it doesn't matter which one they use because they're all the same. I started with the first two vertices in the triangle on the left. So UV. So I wrote down UV, which means I have to pick the first two from the triangle on the right, which is XY. So UV should be congruent to XY. The first two congruent to the first two. So the first two congruent to the first two. For the second statement, I use the second two and the second two. So VW and YZ. And then for the third one, I picked the first and the third. The first and the third. Okay? So the order matters. Yes? In blue or orange? I can't hear you. Blue. VW, YZ. It's the second two and the second two. Okay? All right, then I did the angles. I used pink, but it kind of looks orangish. Anyway, I just went in order. I did the first two congruent to each other, the second two congruent to each other, and the third two congruent to each other. The angles were even easier than the sides. Any questions on part 14? Make sure you write the words order matters. Okay? Question number 15. Question 15 says, Callie started to prove that given the information in the diagram at right, then AB is congruent to CD. Help her by justifying each statement. Okay, so the first thing that they tell us is that AD is parallel to CB. So this piece has a double caret on it, and this piece has a double caret on it. That was given information. Okay, when you have two lines that are parallel, and you can find a transversal, then that means that the alternate interior angles are congruent. We learned that last chapter. Okay, so we're taking something from last chapter, we're putting it into this chapter. So this angle ADB is congruent to angle CBD. So we just say alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles. Okay? Then we also know that angle A is congruent to angle C. That was given to us because we have these little arc marks with a single tick. So if they're matching, I colored them both yellow. The third piece of information is that BD is congruent to DB. That's the same thing, right? Well, that's a shared side. I colored it pink. It's in the top triangle and it's in the bottom triangle. If we separated those two triangles, we pulled them apart, it would go with the top triangle and it would go with the bottom triangle and they'd be congruent. Okay? Because the sides would stay the same. So they're congruent to each other. It's a shared side. So we have an angle, and we have a side. So these two triangles are congruent by what we call angle, side. It's one of the 5 choices on the list in your theorem, right? In your list of theorems, it's angle, side. And that one works. Okay? And then the last one says, basically, that segment AB is congruent to CD. We know that's true because of CPCTC. And then right underneath it in this sentence it says, record in your theorem's graphic organizer the corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So this CPCTC thing comes from right here, the CPCTC. You can write that whole thing out, or you can abbreviate it like I did, CPCTC. Okay, so if you have a highlighter, go ahead and highlight the CPCTC. If you don't have a highlighter, circle them with your pen. CPCTC. Okay? Below this is our properties, which you should have copied into your graphic organizer. You guys are going to flip back over to question 13, and in your group of 4, you're going to highlight the 2 triangles here. See if you can make a flow chart showing that those 2 triangles are congruent.